everyone, this is Mayen from Way Beyond Cakes, and I'm here for another episode of our Going Beyond Cake series. So remember last time we made a fun rainbow slice, right? So right now what we're going to do is make a gravity-defying stand for this one. So essentially we're actually going to make something like this, but it's going to be part of your structure. All right, so you're going to go through the basics of how to make a gravity-defying structure, even if it looks very simple like this, but you'll be able to tilt it, you'll be able to invert it if you wanted to with something that's very secure. All right, so what we're gonna need, well, first we're gonna need our slice of cake from last time, and we're also going to need a good base. So this is going to be our cake base, which is where our stand is gonna go on top of. So this is a 12 by 12 wooden board. Could be craft board, MDF, what's the other one? Compressed wood, that's fine. And then I made a hole using a drill and a drill bit. All right, so when you're using a drill bit with your drill, it has to be the same size as the threaded rod, which is also part of our structure. So a threaded rod comes in many different sizes. So this is 3/8 inch or 10 millimeters in diameter, 12 inches long. They're usually found pre-cut, and this is the shortest readily available size that we have here in the US, 12 inches. We are also going to use, so when you're working with threaded rods, you're also going to start using nuts and washers. I'm going to show you the different types. Okay, and I'm hoping I'd be able to see it closely. All right, so when I'm going to be like a makeup YouTuber here, so you can see that is a hex nut. It's hexagonal in shape, and it's going to be the same size. So if you're working at 10 mm or 10 millimeters / 3/8 inch, all of it will be in that same size. So all of it should be 3/8 or 10 millimeters. So we're going to need a hex nut for the base. All right, we're going to need a hex nut. We're going to need a locking nut. So it's going to be the same hex nut, but it has a nylon on the end, so it locks it in position. And then we're also going to need a washer and a split washer. A split washer is essentially cut like that. Does that show? There. So when you tighten, it will flatten. Right, so this is one set, which is your locking nut, your washer, your split washer, and then your hex nut. All that together will sandwich your board. That's step one. You're gonna need another set of these, except for the locking one. So you're just next layer, you're going to need 2 of the same hex nuts, but essentially it's the same thing. All right, so we're gonna need those. And don't worry, later when I put them together, you'll remember the steps. We're gonna need pliers or wrenches to tighten our hex nuts, and let's see now. All right, we're going to need for our fake stand. So right now we're not really going to cake today, but we're going to stage up our cake. So here I found this in the crafting aisle for woodwork, and this is used as like a base for a clock. So it actually comes pre-drilled, but remember the hole that you're going to need should match the space that you need for your hex nut, so that your threaded rod. So your threaded rod will go through. If it comes pre-drilled, then it's not the same, or it's smaller, then you have to drill it again. Okay, so that will be our stand. And then underneath it, we're going to fake it again, and we're going to use a cone, a styrofoam cone. However, this is too tall for what I need it to be, so I cut it. So our fake stand is going to look like this, which is kind of very visually familiar, right? Because this is what typical cake stands would look like. Now we're going to put our cake on top, but then that's not the end, because we're going to put a piping bag, a small piping bag on it, and all of that will be connected together so that even if you take your base and tilt it, it's not going to go anywhere. All right, so with those materials, what else am I missing? You're gonna need your trusty glue gun and glue stick, and we're also going to need, believe it or not, this is going to be so pivotal later and important, skewer stick or a barbecue stick. And for our fake piping bag, you can use, if you wanted to use Rice Krispie treats. I'm just a little wary of using Rice Krispie treats for the top, using the structure that we're using, because it's a little heavy. It's not impossible, okay? But this is a good shape for a fake piping bag, which is a cone and a half ball together. It's gonna look like a piping bag. So this will go on. So essentially, we're kind of making something like this, but gravity defying. So they're all like connected together. All right. So with all that in here, I'm going to give you a list anyway of what we're going to need, just so we're not forgetting anything. Oh, if you have a fat boba straw or PVC pipe, something that would coat or cover the rod so that the cake will not be touching the rod. All right, so that's it for now. And then the regular cake tools that we need: X-Acto knife, rolling pin, pizza cutter, edible glue, and all that good stuff. All right, so I'll be back with the assembly, and I'll see you in a bit.
Hi, my name's Paul Bradford, and today I'm going to be taking you through all the different stages to create these fabulous cupcakes, cookies and cake pops. So first up is the cupcakes. So we're going to show you how to bake these lovely, beautiful vanilla sponge cupcakes, and then we're going to finish them in two different styles. We've got the buttercream style, and I'm going to show you how to do the buttercream from scratch, how to add colour, and of course pipe it on top of the cupcake. And then we're going to move on to the sugar paste or fondant, same thing, and we're going to get these beautiful little faces and little decorations on top of the cupcakes. Then we're going to move on to the cookies. So we're going to show you how to bake them from scratch, then how to decorate them with run out royal icing, and then so many little fun ways to decorate them. And then the last thing are these beautiful cake pops. They're so fun, and you can see here we've got the more children's style fun ones, and over here we've got the posh ones for the posh people who want to have some champagne and a wee cheeky bit of cake. So come on, let's get started.
All right, so I am going to show you the prep for our board for this time. I pre-rolled my fondant because this is something you all know how to do, right? And as always, we're on a time crunch, so we're trying to save time. I pre-rolled fondant. This is a beautiful purple satinized fondant. And then our board, our 12 by 12 board, I put feet underneath. Now the feet underneath can be styrofoam, wood, anything that's about half an inch tall. And then I prep the surface with shortening so that my fondant will stick to it, and I can still reposition it if I need to. It's not going to be a big problem. why am I doing this now? Because it will be much harder to do it later. So anything that if we're thinking about, things that can save us time and heartache, this would be one of them for this type of cake. Because we're going to put something in the middle, so we don't want to go around it later on. Let it just go on top of what we're doing right now. It doesn't have to be fondant, by the way. I just want something that's bright, and this is the perfect color to show off our gold stand later on. And it's just a very happy kind of cake too, so we want to complement that with a nice base, a nice happy base color with the cake stand highlighting it. Okay, so clean. I put a nice complementary ribbon on it, and then now I'm going to walk you through how to put our structure into our cake. Wait, I'm going to move my camera a little closer. Okay, so now you're closer. You don't see me, but you'll be able to see the process a little better. So remember, we have a 12-inch threaded rod, 3/8 in diameter. We're going to need our wrench or pliers. And then for the beginning, we're going to do two layers, I would say, 2 points where we have to secure something. So the first one, which is our base, we're going to need the locking nut, the one with the nylon. We're going to need the regular nut. We're going to need a regular washer and a split washer. So first we're going to put the regular hex nut. I think underneath, right? Sometimes you could go either way. You could do regular washer or the split underneath. I think for this purpose, because it's going to go on fondant, this is better. Okay, so regular washer, and then we're going to find that hole. It's right there. Okay. Now how deep are we going to go? So part of it's going to come out here, right? And we're going to put the split. Oops, the one that's split. Be careful. Sometimes when you drill, there's going to be pieces of wood coming out. So be careful. And then our locking nut. When you use the locking nut, it will be, even if you've never used it before, there will be only one way that you can use it. So you'll immediately get it. You cannot use it this way. This will always be in the end. The purpose of the locking nut is so that it will lock your rod in position. It will not go through because the nylon is keeping it intact and safe, right? And we're going to tighten as much as we can, so we got to be a little careful with our fondant. I'm just going to hold it here and tighten at the bottom. Hold it in position, and the tightening will happen here. So what are we doing right now? We are securing our rod, and we are sandwiching the cake base for the board. Whoop. Be careful. All right. So you're going to see that the washer has positioned itself firmly into the fondant. So not a problem. Next, we're going to put our cake stand. I'm going to turn on my glue gun. So we're going to put on our cake, the base of our cake stand, right? But how is it going to stay there? So this is what I'm saying. This is the first batch. I guess at the bottom when we're securing the base. The next thing we need to do is secure the cake stand. Okay, this one. And then how high is it going to be? So remember earlier we cut a little bit of the styrofoam cone. We cut it. I made a hole in the middle. I cut out a hole. Can you see that one? I cut out a hole because it needs to go through. It needs to go through this, right? And then I also cut a wedge in it so that it will be easier to put in when we've already secured the base. So this is what I mean. Why do we need this cut? Because when I put it right here, I want to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere, right? Which means I need to use my hex nut. I need to use my washers. So if I already have this in a position where I can't move it anymore, how am I going to put my hex nut in? So what I know now is that I need to, so this is a marker. What I'm doing right now is that it's a marker. I need to make sure that my first hex nut goes in there. And it goes inside the cone. Oops. How far inside? It needs to be level. Okay. Right? Because we need to sandwich this. We're gonna get what I'm trying to say in a second, I'm sure. All right, so remember, I mean, if our stand was like this, how are we gonna tighten it now, right? You can see that it's a little wonky because of the split washer in there that we needed to tighten. All right, so I'm just going to take this out because I know it's in the right position, right? I need to take this out. And then I need to tighten it. So I'm going to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. I'm holding it at the bottom and I'm tightening it on top. Alright, so now that we have that secure, it's so secure I could pick it up from here, right? So now I want to make sure that, so now it's tight and secure. I want to make sure that the leg of our cake stand is going to go in. There's a hole in it. So initially it's like this. I cut it, I put a hole in it, I drilled a hole in it. Cut a wedge out of it. So now it will be just glued in. So also be very careful with your glue, and I'm trying to say this to myself as well, because sometimes if your glue has heated up for a long time, it might melt your styrofoam. So it won't really do anything, pretty much. It's gonna happen. Trying to see which part I want as my front. All right, I'm gonna flip it so that you're gonna see that. What I want to do now is I'm just going to glue in the part where the hex nuts are, so that you're just extra sure they're not gonna go anywhere. And then glue sides so that our little wedge will just fit perfectly in there. All right, perfect. So this is the base of our stand. I'm gonna come right back and we're gonna cover our cake stand. Right, now we're going to cover our stand with gold fondant. I'm using, for this particular one, I'm using satinized gold so that it's already that nice golden color. If it's cold where you are, you can also just microwave it for a little bit. And then one thing that would help, it's hard that I have to do it this way. One thing that would help when you're doing something like this is if you have the same color fondant and the same color as the base, that would be better too. All right. So for this particular part, the fondant doesn't have to be too thin because we also want to cover any lines or imperfections from the styrofoam surface. The styrofoam that I used is called open cell styro, which means it's like this. So when you rub it against each other, you produce powder, not balls. So that's a little easier to cut for me. But it also means that there's more bumps to cover. So I use shortening, a generous amount of shortening to cover those bumps. So instead of doing 2 coats, 3 coats. I'm just gonna use shortening for that. To give myself an estimate, I forgot to measure that one. Let's see. It's about 4 inches. Now, one thing I noticed now that I put fondant in there is that I'm not too careful, so I want to make sure that I don't ruin my beautiful purple stand. Right, where's my front? So that obviously the ruined one is the back. Right, so 4 inches. One, two, three, 4. Even if there's a little bit of space, it's fine. As long as there's not much of a... Okay, so I see a little bit more. I overshot it, which is not a big deal because my fondant strip is thick, so I can stretch it a little bit. Still, must have not measured it right. There, come on. There you go. So for this tutorial, we're not going to go into crazy amounts of detail, okay? Because just on detailing the stand alone, we could spend a day. But we only have 1 hour. So I would want to stick with construction and execution, and then you are in charge of, you're going to be in charge of decorating that down the road, you know, if you wanted to do whatever effect you want to add to it, mold, scrolls, whatever, impressions. Okay, so I'm going to use, let me get my acetate smoother. But essentially, trying to smooth down my cut. My blade is also a little dull, I guess. That's why it's a little hard to trim it neatly. Alright, so fast forward. It's not so neat, make it neat then. That will be bothering me for a while. I'm going to add just a little strip to it so that it's going to be neat. Sometimes it's little things like that that would just hide any glaring imperfection. So something even as small as this would be able to hide that because it's cleaner. Alright, next we're going to move on to the top. So again, if you have the same color paper, put it at the bottom or stick it underneath, and that will definitely make it cool and solid. What I like about the Satin Ice metallic colors is that you can actually see the little sparkly bits, edible sparkly bits in there. Okay, if it's a little tough, I can microwave it for a few seconds. Two. About 10 seconds, and then I'm putting shortening on all the surfaces that I want my fondant to attach to. A generous amount of shortening, pretty generous. It will be your glue. Okay. How generous? When it feels gross, you're doing the right thing. Okay, you're doing the right thing. Put that aside, and then we're just going to create some space over here on my small table. Some people might think, oh, are we just wasting our time? I mean, we can do that with a dowel. There are some things that will make sense later on. Let me say that. Why we're using a rod. And for the stuff that we want to do for the gravity-defying structure is a very straightforward, let me sit down. It's a very straightforward idea. But when you add the gravity-defying element to it, and something that looks so ordinary will then become a little more special. And that's what I'm going for this one. It's a happy cake. And then we're gonna just make it a little more exciting. I think I laid it out pretty thick, so I'm trying to thin it out. Now these plaques, they're called wooden plaques. They also come in different sizes. So if you wanted to do a rectangular one, an oval, just many different types. It's fun to look at too, because if you've never gone to that section in the crafting aisle, then you wouldn't know what's actually available there for you. Right, so the metallics have a little bit of a stretch to them too, so it's good. We're gonna mark the middle with an X. I'm gonna get that hole prepped, and we're just gonna lay it on our fake stand and just relax. Okay, don't panic when you're on this stage. This is the best one because you're not really needing to cover a big area, and it doesn't melt with your hands. It's not cake. And what's nice about this is that the wooden plaque already has a design, so not much, not much fuss needed afterwards. If you have a straight, thicker wood piece, you could still do designs like scallops. You could be very creative with what you can do with that one. Right, so trying to use a long blade. To help trim it. And I'm just using the edge of the wooden plate as my guide. fondant also tends to stick to our blades, so always check your blades. It's like a very royal color, I like it. Okay, the next thing would be putting the cake on top of our stand. So now that we have our stand ready, ta-da! Right, so this is our stand. I've given it some time to set. And if you wanted to decorate yours a little more, then you can do that later. But then let's go back to the cake. So the cake that we had done earlier, we need to make a hole in it so that it's going to go into our stand, into the rod that's in the middle. All right, so when you're working with structure, you always want to isolate the non-edible part and make it food safe, and isolate it from your food parts. So there are a couple of things that you can do when you're working with structure. One is to cover it with food safe wrap several times so that you can be assured that it's not going to get in contact with the food. At this point, where we are at right now, there's no food yet. This is just your stand. That's it. Your cake's not even here yet. So some people will get it. Some people never will. Some people will think, then why all the trouble? And then the other side of the population will say, why not? You know, so you don't have to be on the extreme sides, but just keep an open mind when you're working with cakes, because cakes have been done the same over and over. So that's why we have fun classes and tutorials to kind of want to push that idea a little further than before. So what we're doing right now, not rocket science, however, it's a fresh take on it. So if you haven't done anything like this, then now's the time to experiment. Or if you've done something that looks like it, then now's the time to shock the heck out of your friends, right? Right, so the objective, to be able to put your slice. So as you can imagine, my cake is now really set. Because this is real cake that we did last time, right? But now, you know, it's in the fridge and all that. We need to make a hole in it, and I can hold it because it's really sturdy now. It's from the fridge. Do you see that hole? Where is that? There you go. There's a hole there, right? You can use a fat boba straw. Put it in there. Take the cake out. Poke a hole and make a hole at the bottom of the cake board. That's one way to do it. Another thing that you can use, water pipes, or at least the water pipes that we have here are for water, so they're safe. You can use that. And let me see now what we got. This one has a hole big enough. Okay, I think I pre-cut. So if you're working with water pipes or PVC that are food safe, it doesn't matter what kind of pipe it is, you have to cut it, right? So this is a good tool to use if you are using food safe or safe pipes, water pipes. It's a PVC cutter, and it works with that ratchet motion, and it will easily cut your PVC. So earlier, that's what I did. All these fun things around me. Cut PVC into our cake. So there's still cake board underneath, right? So now I want my cake. I'm trying to determine now where it's gonna go, what it's gonna look like. My little mistake last time was because I put the cake in a round board. When I cut the board, I exposed the cake board. So I'm gonna cover this later. But right now, what I want to do is secure this first and see where it's going to go. Some cake went out, so I'm going to poke it out here on my bin to make sure that the extra cake is taken out. Let's find a good angle for this. So that's the front. Maybe that's a good angle so you can see. Or maybe this is a good angle now. Okay. Let's decide Mayen. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna use that as a good angle. Whoa. Again, this point, nothing that your glue touches is going to be eaten. Nothing. So it's clean. Okay, I'm trying to position it from your view, right? From your view, so that when we put the piping bag on it, it's going to stay put. And you can see the angle. Alrighty. So now that it's positioned, meaning there's support in the middle and there's support at the bottom because it's glued in, we're going to put, of all the funny things, skewer sticks. Because once you lodge your skewer stick in here, believe it or not, it's not going to go anywhere. And then, where's my, okay, so these are cone styrofoam, and I made a hole so that it's going to, I'm going to make this a little taller now, guys, so that you guys can see what we're gonna do next. There. It's just a one-woman show here. You know that already. So I want my piping bag, if this is going in this direction, I want my piping bag to go in the other direction. So from your standpoint, this is what my hole needs to look like, right? So I'm going to hide it. Did I poke a hole already on this one? Here. Okay, I'm going to raise it a little bit so that it can, where's the other one? I'm going to rub it real bit so that the ends are clean. We're going to raise this a little bit because there's going to be icing on here. And then I'm going to put a stick. Maybe about 3 inches in. Let's try that again. It's still gonna go. Alright, let's see. It's coming together. Okay. So what we're gonna do next is we're going to cover our piping bag, or fake piping bag. And for fun purposes, we're going to use a different color to cover it. So our icing, of course, will be white. We have a silver tip, and then we're going to have a different colored bag for our icing. So it'll be a little fun. All right, so while I'm gonna work on that one, let's do our little swirl first. Our little swirl will be pure white because I would love to have a nice white trim at the bottom as well for like an icing swirl. To kind of clean that part, kind of break, and you know, it's all colorful, but we also need a little bit of white in there to tie them all together. So for that swirl on top, let's see if this is big enough or if it's too big. It's like unicorn poo. It's so soft. Okay, I'm just gonna see first. Maybe it's too big. I'm gonna, where's my scissor? I'm gonna cut this. I just want a nice cute swirl, not too crazy. Check again. At this point, if you make a mistake and you're like, oh, my stick isn't so long, this hasn't been glued, it's just wedged in there, you can always take it out, change your mind, change the position, change the length. It's not a big deal. Okay, all right, great. Still holds, still good. A little bit of dimension on there. It's not too smooth. So I want it to be a little fluffy looking. I want to make sure too that the tip will be hidden. Okay, so now I'm going to raise this a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit off at the end, just to make it a little pointy going down. Okay, right now we haven't glued anything in here too, so where's my glue? Just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So when you're happy with where it's at, just a little bit of edible glue will stick it in position. There we go. And then just like before, we're going to just put a lot of shortening on our piping bag. I'm gonna color the piping bag. I'm gonna put maybe a turquoise or teal. Oh, I haven't glued this thing yet too, it reminds me. Okay. Right, so, oops, before this goes anywhere, let's glue them together. We're just doing the top and the bottom. Now, what if you don't have a half ball? It's not really a big issue. If you don't have a half ball, then just use extra fondant. We just want some body, you know, to your piping bag, so it looks full. Your piping bag is full. It could always be half empty if you don't have it. Okay. We're going to now wrap the end with the white fondant. Alright, I'm going to cut it and I'm going to leave it for a moment, and then I'm going to get the teal. Right here, I'm going to get beautiful color, and I think it's nice that there's not much repetition of the colors, so it's a very vibrant, very happy cake. Almost done, guys. Almost there. So with the piping bag, you're also going to have excess in the end, because we want a little bit of the. Let me see if I can direct you down a little bit. There you go. Where the white is at. It will have a line at the bottom, so where they will meet. Okay, so don't worry so much about that. It's the piping bag. It's gonna be all right. It can have some lines, okay? And then here at the top, oh, it's a very cute pudgy. Very cute and little pudgy piping bag of ours. A little bit of glue at the top. Trying to cover that stick and at the same time hopefully use it as like a little bit of extra support. And so we're gonna put some lines over there, and then we're going to find the hole and we're going to position it on the cake again. So I'm trying to hide it. I'm trying to hide it at the same time open some parts that are not there. I'm gonna try to find the hole again, and let me see, where is it? Somewhere here, guys, come on. There you go. So that's the hole. Can you find that hole? Okay. So once we find that right position for the piping bag, we got to be really careful for the next step. Where you can't see. I'm sorry. Yeah. So once we find that hole, we're going to find that perfect spot where we can glue this. We can glue it raised, right? It doesn't have to sit on this. We can glue it while it's up there. So we can put a little bit of glue into the styrofoam cone, let it set there for a moment, and then try to find that hole again, and then try to feel up to when you're going to push, because you can always elongate the very end of it. All right, there you go. So to add a little bit of break, I guess, in the color, we're going to put just a small strip of white, like a tie, for the piping bag. So there's a small, nice tie over there. All right, so after this, I'm gonna come back and show you some more details on the stuff that we missed. All right, we'll be back in a bit. All right, so now that we are almost done, we just want to cover the bottom, so we hide that line, and we're just gonna add a little bit of icing detail on the side. So nothing too crazy, but we wanted the drippy icing on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to use my fingers to make the irregular icing appearance there. I know we want it to be irregular as possible there. And I'm not sure if you guys can see from your end. There you go. So we just put in the one at the bottom, just so that we can be sure that all the exposed lines are hidden, like the line of the cake board, the cake, oops, that flew out, the cake, base, and then probably just a clean line at the bottom so that it's not too busy. So nothing fancy, just to make sure that everything's neat and clean. You need to do this too so that it will look clean and finished, versus not minding it, and it will end up to be the only thing that you will actually see, because it's not neat. Almost there, almost reaching the end. And then another thing that we can add to break the white swirl on the top is to add just a little detail for the tip, which you can achieve by using silver luster dust or highlighter, and just adding a little bit of Everclear in it, or your lemon extract or alcohol. And then we will then be able to separate your icing tip from your icing swirl. So little details like that. If you're using lemon extract or Everclear, you'll be able to build on the color as it dries. So don't be frustrated with the first pass if it's not opaque yet. Let it dry and then let Everclear or lemon extract do the job. And it will build on the white and make it opaque. There you go. This is a very simplified version, I'd say, of our, there you go, a simple version of a gravity-defying birthday slice. Right, so it's your cake stand that's holding it together. So I'm trying to hold it through the feet, so I'm not going to touch the purple base. Awesome, isn't that fun? So in terms of pranking somebody, you can very easily prank somebody, like you're going to do a delivery and then it's going to fall, but it's not really going to. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to add your details and personalize it and all that. But I hope you enjoyed your gravity-defying cake slice. Bye guys, until next episode. Bye.